Hello, we are moving on to agreements to enter into a lease and leasing. Right now I want you to remember things about leasing. The first thing is use the RAGFL, which is the Real Estate Association of Greater Fort Lauderdale. When I say RAGFL, that's what I mean, RAGFL. The listing contract for the leases, as well as the agreement to enter into a lease. Use that as well. I've put copies in your package of the other agreement, just so in case you got that, if you have a listing, you'll know the difference, and read them both so you can completely understand both forms. Now remember that you don't have the clause in the listing contract that's not the RAGFL about if the tenant buys the property, you getting paid your commission. So you really want to watch out for that and make sure you include that if you need to. Another thing is, if you have the lease and you have the listing of the lease, then you are to draw up the lease. Make sure that they've checked that you'll draw that up. Now keep in mind, the only lease that you can draw up is the one that's prepared for you by the state. So there's only one lease that we can fill out legally, and that is also in the package filled out. Now if the owner has their own lease, they need to fill that out. You are not allowed to fill that out. So make sure that you follow those rules. Always do a walkthrough with leasing. Make sure you have everything documented. So if you have the tenant, that their deposit won't be taken, and if you have the landlord, you want to make sure that they're prepared and that they're protected. So prepared for the end of the lease, because when that end of the lease comes up, you want to make sure when they call you for pictures that you have everything well documented if there's any damage. And last but not least, call me with any questions. I have those all of these little reminders in your package. Now we've gone over the lease listings. So now you have a contract to enter into a lease. So once you have a listing, what's going to happen, whether if you find a tenant or another agent finds a tenant, then you will be presented with an agreement to enter into a lease. So I'm going to go through that with you now. I have that filled out in your package, so make sure you read through it like everything else and go through these forms very carefully, because it's very important that you get them right, because any mistakes could really be a problem down the line. So the first thing is the tenants. You have to fill in the tenant's name and the landlord, and the county and the address. The furnishings, if it's furnished or unfurnished, if they're leaving furniture. So this was unfurnished. Now if it is furnished, make sure that you do an inventory, and we have that form also in the app files, that you do a complete inventory. Most of the time this doesn't happen, only if it's seasonal. So we're saying unfurnished. The personal property included, just include any of the personal property that's there at the property. If there's a washer dryer, the appliances, and any door openers and the opener controls. How many people are occupying the property? If there's every person over 18 should be screened, and you have to make sure that you do that. So this is they're occupying 2 adults and 2 children. And pets, if they are going to have pets, whether they're going to have a refundable security or non-refundable. Parking and storage. The length of the lease, usually we do a year. Anything under 6 months, 6 months and 1 day is not subject to sales tax. Anything under 6 months is subject to sales tax, so remember that. And that tax is to be collected by the landlord and sent to the state. And you need to include that on this form. There's a seasonal rental part and what the tax is. So you got to make sure that that's included. So the annual amount is $18,000. It's payable in 3 installments: first, last, and security. If you put here for the partial month, if you prorate the month, that you could divide that and prorate it for how many days they're in early. For the fee for credit check, it could be $100. Usually it runs around $100. And also advanced rent isn't last month's rent. Advanced rent would be if you got first and second month's rent, or first, second, and third month's rent. So don't get confused by that. Last month is always last month. Advanced is not last month. So make sure that when you fill out your paperwork, it's first, last, and security. So basically when you do a lease, you want to collect 1 month until you go to the walkthrough and the funding. Make sure that it is certified clear funds when you do a walkthrough. Never take a personal check when you're moving in a tenant. If that check bounces, you're in serious hot water. So you need to make sure that you take all of the money comes in clear funds, whether it's a certified check, cash to the owner. I prefer money orders or a certified check. And then you want to have the commission can be taken, the deposit beforehand. A check, personal check is fine because that will be subject to clearance unless you're going to be closing it in less than a week. And then that whole month you should make for a deposit to the real estate company. Now when you do the owner's check, have the tenant bring in a certified check to the owner. Reason being, if you bring the whole amount to me, I have to W-9 the landlord, and sometimes they get a little upset about that. So this is the best way to do it. Take the full commission, what is going to be the commission, which is the 1 month, it's the only commission that you can have. Is that the only thing you can fund is from the first month. The rest of the monies is not yours, so that belongs to the landlord. So that has to always be separated. So you can never collect from the last or security. That needs to be in a separate account for the tenant. For the insurance, of course, the contents would be paid by the tenant, and a landlord usually pays for the insurances and anything to do with the maintenance and basically anything to do with keeping up the property and the real estate taxes. The tenant has to do any of the utilities, telephone, gas, electric, any of that would be borne on the tenant. So that is there, unless there's something specified otherwise. Sometimes the utilities will be taken care of in a seasonal rental. So if you have a question, then you will ask on that. Now with the agreement to enter into lease, that you will have 5 days to get that lease done. If you are the listing agent, that's your responsibility. Security deposits are not rent, so they are, just like I told you, that they need to be held by the landlord. Occupancy will not be permitted without approval of an association, so you can never let them move in without the association approval. You'll have a walkthrough before they may move in. And basically, it just says that what your duties are of finding a tenant and so forth. Hazardous materials, you do have to have a lead-based notice. So you need to provide a brochure and have the lead base signed off. If you're using the lease that we prepare, the lead base is included in that lease. And basically it's just stating again fair housing and all the other good stuff. And that's just the agreement to enter into. It is not the lease. I repeat, that is not the lease. So then I also included in here a lead-based disclosure. If the landlord has his own form and the house is prior to 78, you need to fill out the lead-based disclosure. And then we have the lease. The lease is 19 pages, and I've filled out one for you. The reason being it has a Landlord-Tenant Act in it, and that's what makes it so long. So it gives them all that information. The first page just basically states that we are not lawyers. Lawyers hate that we fill out leases, and it's never, until this form, we weren't even allowed to do that. So this just states that they understand English and that I'm not a paralegal or a legal attorney. So basically you just fill your name in all of the areas and that they can understand English. You need to have them initial that and sign. The lease, you just basically take the agreement to enter into a lease and put down the same information. And you fill that out. I have a copy of everything in here, the names, the address, what's staying with the property, how many people are on the premises, the term of the lease, the payments, first, last, security, who the rent is going to be payable to, if it's a landlord, and their address, And also if there is, if they can pay by personal check, most people are allowed to after they initially move in. As I said before, all funds need to be clear prior to move in. The tenant, if the tenant has a bad check, I put a $30 fee. Money to move in, I put $47.50, because in this example I had a $250 pet deposit and I broke it all down. So it's pretty basic there. Late fees, we usually put in 5%, 5 to 10% of late fees depending on the price. Pets, I put you right in what kind of a pet. I would always recommend getting a picture of the pet, because if you get a pit bull, their insurance can be canceled. So if you have an accompanying picture of the pet, just ask for a picture to accompany with pet deposits. That's always a great idea. And then where the notices are going to be sent to, and here I have Dunvest and then the address. And then the maintenance, just like we went through, you need to go through all the different maintenance items like floors, roofs, all that is from the owner. The tenants will pay for their utilities, and it's pretty much the landlord pays for any of the maintenance, upkeep, taxes, insurance, and so forth, and repairs. And it says how many keys that they furnished, so that goes in there. And then a lead-based paint, check if it's a lead base, it's built right in, which is real nice. Don't forget that it's not good enough to just have the sign. You need to give them the lead paint brochure along with it. And then it's just a standard lease. And then there's the broker's commission at the very end, and then they need to sign there. And early termination and liquidated damages. Now with early termination and liquidated damages, I always just say I do not agree to liquidated damages, and the reason being is stating that they can give 2 months notice and break the lease. The problem is if this is an association, the landlord is going to be very upset with you if they're stuck and they have a year that they can't re-rent the property. So my suggestion is I do not agree to liquidated damages. If you want to negotiate liquidated damages, you could do that at a later time. But that's what I always put in there. A lot of people fill that in wrongly because I don't think it's a good idea. So I would always put the do not do that. And then it's just the Landlord-Tenant Act from page 8 to 18. So, and another suggestion, read the Landlord-Tenant Act, read the lease, fair housing. Make sure that you always abide by fair housing, and make sure that if you have any questions, always call me. And also, one more thing on this, Section 8 vouchers. That's another thing that you will be running into people that have Section 8 vouchers. Basically, the government guarantees their rent. It's the same process other than you have a whole package to fill out for Section 8, and I can help you one-on-one with that if you have that situation. It's just a big package, and most of the time the tenants have already filled them out. So you're really good to go with that. They're pretty much up on it because they know exactly what they need. And then if there's anything missing, the Section 8 worker will call you and you'll have to provide it. So you really need to just go through the whole package line by line and get it done complete. If you have questions, call me. But other than that, that concludes leasing. Again, read all the contracts well. Go through them. Spend a lot of time on this because this is the most important thing. Go do a practice run so you don't have to do it in front of the client. And if you have questions on anything that it pertains to anything, give me a call. Thank you.